In the vast, thundering machinery of World War II, countless men were forged into weapons of war. They learned to march, to shoot, to fight. They were trained to take lives in defense of their country and their brothers in arms. Yet, among these legions stood one man who marched to a different drumbeat. His name was Desmond Doss. He was a quiet, unassuming young man from Lynchburg, Virginia, with a gentle spirit and a deep, unshakable faith. When his country called, he answered without hesitation. He was ready to serve, ready to face the horrors of the battlefield, and ready to lay down his life. But there was one thing he would not do. He would not carry a gun. Desmond Doss was a soldier who refused to kill. Doss's conviction was rooted in his beliefs as a Seventh-day Adventist. His faith taught him that taking a human life was a violation of God's commandments. He held the sixth commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," as a sacred and absolute principle. This put him at immediate odds with the very institution he had joined. In basic training, he was an outcast. His fellow soldiers mocked him, they called him a coward, and questioned his patriotism. His commanding officers tried to have him discharged, viewing his refusal to bear arms as a liability. They saw a man who would be useless in combat, a weak link in the chain, but they misunderstood the source of his strength. His resolve was not born of fear, but of profound love for his fellow man. He endured the harassment and the ridicule with quiet dignity. He was subjected to extra duties and threatened with a court-martial for his steadfast refusal to even touch a rifle. While other soldiers trained with their weapons, Doss studied medical journals, determined to serve as a combat medic. He believed his purpose was not to take life, but to save it. He wanted to be on the front lines, not to fight with steel and lead, but to mend the broken bodies of his comrades. His fight was not against the enemy, but against death itself. He was determined to prove that his courage was just as strong, if not stronger, than those who carried weapons of war. This steadfast determination eventually saw him assigned to the 307th Infantry Regiment, 77th Infantry Division, as a company medic. He carried no M1 rifle, no pistol, no knife for protection. His only tools were his medical kit, his Bible, and his unwavering faith. The men of his unit still viewed him with suspicion. They couldn't comprehend a soldier going into the heart of battle completely unarmed. They didn't trust him yet. They didn't know that this quiet, conscientious objector, the man they had scorned, would soon become their guardian angel in one of the bloodiest battles of the Pacific War. His true test was coming on a jagged, unforgiving cliff on the island of Okinawa. The island of Okinawa was a fortress. It was the last major battle of World War II, a brutal and bloody struggle for every inch of ground. The key to the Japanese defensive line was a formidable 400-foot cliff known as the Maida Escarpment. The American soldiers who had to climb it gave it a more fitting name, Hacksaw Ridge. It was a place of relentless machine gun fire, mortar shells, and hidden enemy positions. Taking the ridge seemed impossible. Again and again, American troops would ascend the cargo nets strung up its face, only to be cut down by a storm of Japanese fire from above. The ground became soaked with the blood of the fallen, a nightmarish landscape of chaos and death. It was into this hell on earth that Private First Class Desmond Doss went, armed only with his medical supplies. On May 5, 1945, his unit launched another assault on the ridge. The fighting was ferocious. The Americans suffered devastating casualties, and the order was finally given to retreat. The able-bodied soldiers scrambled back down the cliff face, seeking safety from the unending barrage. But Desmond Doss refused to leave. He looked out over the kill zone atop the ridge and saw dozens of his wounded comrades scattered across the torn earth. They were left for dead, helpless under the continuous enemy fire. He could hear their cries for a medic, their pleas for help. While his company sought cover below, Doss remained on the plateau. He was alone, surrounded by the enemy. Disregarding the immense danger to his own life, he began his mission. He ran from one fallen soldier to another, his lanky frame a clear target against the skyline. He ignored the bullets that whizzed past his ears and the explosions that shook the very ground he walked on. With each man he found, he quickly administered first aid, staunching bleeding wounds and offering words of comfort. He worked tirelessly, his mind and body focused on one single purpose, saving lives. He was exposed, he was vulnerable, but he was not afraid. His faith was his shield. The real challenge was getting the men to safety. Doss devised a simple yet ingenious method. He crafted a special rope sling, and one by one he dragged the heavy, wounded soldiers to the edge of the cliff. He then, single-handedly, lowered each man down the sheer escarpment to the American lines below. He was exhausted, his hands were raw and bleeding from the rope, but he did not stop. Time and again he disappeared back into the smoke and fire to find another wounded man. The soldiers below watched in disbelief as body after body was lowered from the ridge by the man they had once called a coward. As the hours stretched on, Doss pushed himself beyond the limits of human endurance. The physical toll was immense. Each soldier he rescued weighed heavily on his exhausted frame. The mental strain of being surrounded by constant death and destruction was unimaginable. Yet something kept him going. With every man he successfully lowered to safety, he would offer up a simple, desperate prayer. "Lord, please help me get one more," he would whisper, his voice raw with fatigue and emotion. This prayer became his mantra, his source of strength. It was a conversation between him and his God, a plea that fueled his heroic determination in the face of overwhelming odds. This divine bargain pushed him to crawl back into the battlefield again and again. He ventured deep into enemy territory, sometimes within yards of Japanese machine gun nests, to reach wounded soldiers who had been given up for lost. He treated American soldiers and, according to some accounts, even tended to the wounds of injured Japanese soldiers. His compassion knew no uniform. To him, they were all just men in need of help, sons of a loving God. He was not just a medic for his company. He was a medic for humanity itself, a lone figure of mercy in a landscape defined by merciless violence. His actions were a testament to his belief that every life was precious. The soldiers who had once mocked him now owed him their lives. They had witnessed a miracle on Hacksaw Ridge. The man who refused to carry a weapon had shown more courage than anyone they had ever known. He became a legend within the 77th Division. His presence was a source of comfort and inspiration. Men felt safer knowing that if they fell, Doss would be there for them. They saw that his faith was not a weakness, but an unbreakable armor. His bravery was not the kind that came from a rifle, but the kind that came from a deep and profound conviction to preserve life, even at the cost of his own. For 12 agonizing hours, Desmond Doss worked his miracle. He prayed his prayer, "Lord, please help me get one more," over and over, until he had rescued every man he could find. The official estimate credited him with saving 75 lives that day on Hacksaw Ridge, though Doss himself, in his humility, believed the number was closer to 50. Whatever the exact count, his actions were nothing short of superhuman. He had single-handedly cleared the plateau of the American wounded, turning a scene of defeat and despair into a story of incredible hope and survival. He had faced the fires of hell and emerged a savior. Desmond Doss's incredible bravery did not end on that single day. He continued to serve with distinction throughout the Battle of Okinawa, risking his life repeatedly to aid his fellow soldiers. A few weeks later, he was severely wounded himself by a grenade explosion which left him with 17 pieces of shrapnel embedded in his legs. While waiting for litter bearers to carry him from the field, he saw another soldier who was more critically injured. Doss crawled off his own stretcher and insisted the other man be taken first. While waiting for help to return, he was struck by a sniper's bullet that shattered his arm. Even then, he fashioned a splint from a rifle stock and crawled 300 yards to an aid station. His war was over, but his story was just beginning. On October 12, 1945, at a ceremony at the White House, President Harry S. Truman stood before the quiet, unassuming medic from Virginia. He presented Doss with the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest award for valor. In doing so, Desmond Doss became the first conscientious objector in American history to receive this prestigious award. His citation celebrated his outstanding gallantry and intrepidity in action, recognizing the profound courage of a man who fought his own way. The medal was not just an award for bravery, it was a validation of his unwavering principles. The legacy of Desmond Doss is not simply about the number of lives he saved, but about the power of conviction. He proved that heroism comes in many forms. It doesn't always carry a weapon or shout a battle cry. Sometimes it whispers a quiet prayer, "Lord, please help me get one more." He demonstrated that one can be a patriot without compromising one's core beliefs. His story challenges our very definition of a warrior. He was a soldier who fought not to destroy but to heal. He was a true hero, not for the enemies he killed, but for the brothers he saved. Desmond Doss lived a long and humble life after the war, passing away in 2006. He rarely spoke of his own heroism, always giving credit to God for his actions on Hacksaw Ridge. Yet, his story continues to inspire millions around the world. It is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, in the midst of the most horrific violence, the strength of one person's faith and compassion can shine as a brilliant light. He was a man of peace who walked through the valley of the shadow of death and showed the world the true meaning of courage. His life is a testament to the extraordinary power of an ordinary man guided by an unshakable faith.